I hope you can see the slides already. Okay, if you're ready, I will start. Okay, so now you will get a little bit another perspective, different to Iceland, because this is the perspective from a city and from the energy, spatial energy planning perspective. If we talk about the energy transition in Vienna, maybe it's important to know that we are as a capital of Austria have already 2 million people, 2 million inhabitants, and also diverse in the density of the city. But nevertheless, we have a very old building stock. So as you can see, more than 30,000 buildings are constructed before the First World War. So we have to face also with this very old building stock as well. Um, Now, what are our strategies and concepts towards decarbonization, towards this energy transition we have to face? So overall, we have this smart climate city strategy, and there is a commitment on political level to follow this strategy. There are the main goals for everyone, and it's compulsory for more or less everyone of the city. So that's our orientation, and through under this headline of the smart climate city strategy, we developed some other strategies, which are going more in details. And very important for us was the Vienna Climate Guide. We were specifying all issues about mitigation and at the same time also adaptation. And now we are working on extension of the new version of the Vienna Climate Guide. I'm in a working group as well on this, and we integrate also the topic of circularity. But nevertheless, we try to get here the framework. And if it comes to our heating and cooling supply, we have this phasing out program and this phasing out strategy. And about the phasing out, I will talk a little bit more. So our goal in overall was the decarbonization, the full decarbonization of all sectors. So also in the transport sector, mobility, as well, and the waste management and so on for electricity, and finally for the buildings, we want to be climate neutral, more or less climate neutral to 2040. A very special challenge we face in Vienna, and I know that not many cities have this very special situation. I know it from some Dutch cities. I know it in some German cities a little bit less. So that we have the situation that in the multi-family houses, we face it the situation that a lot of apartments have a decentralized gas boiler within the apartment. So not a centralized system, so a decentralized system. And in most cases, if you want to connect the building to district heating, you have to centralize the heating system within the building, which is a very a big challenge for us to face it. Also, it comes to costs. And we have more than 500,000 apartments or units. We have to change from gas to other energy sources, and yeah, that's the very big challenge because you can imagine more than 500,000 in apartments. What does it mean? And we have just 13, 14 years left, so yeah, we have to do a lot. For that reason, for instance, we defined decarbonization types of buildings. So we try to figure out what is the situation in the city of the buildings and try to make a typology on it and to get for every type a special strategy on it. At the same time, these are some different fields. We have elements of the phase out gas program, what we face. Um, we are aware that not just technical solution will be the solution. So we have also the legal framework, and as you can see in the figure, you see that spatial energy planning is just a part of it. So spatial energy planning cannot solve your problem in the energy transition. It's just an instrument, a very important one, but nevertheless, it has to be connected to all other elements like the labor market, the skilled worker we need, like the subsidies, the fundings, like the communication, the consultation process, and so on, and to bring this all together. Yeah, that's the maybe the best option of spatial energy planning to bring on spatial level all these issues together. If it comes to the energy zoning, maybe that might be interesting for us, for you. In 10 years ago, we made already a project. It called Urban Learning. Stockholm was a part of this project, and we were thinking about if there is an area development, an urban development ongoing, and we look at the planning processes, how we can integrate energy. Because in this time, sometimes it happens in most of the city that energy was only planned building by building, but not overall for an area, and sometimes not in the thinking of renewable energy. That was the reason why. But nevertheless, if we made all this analysis of this process and where we can integrate energy, we recognized that the normal spatial planning instruments are not sufficient for the energy transition or for the planning of it. This is an example of an urban zoning plan in Vienna. So the land use plan in details, what is the legal binding one. And as you can see, we have more than 400 areas. We've split it up in such planning documents. And the time shift of it is very different. In some areas, it was a new one because there was a new development. In some areas, it was just a renewal because the plan was very old, more than 10 or 15 years old, as you can see. And the reason why to do this from planning perspective is a different reason of than in energy supply. And energy supply could not be regulated by this. It has also a legal reason why you cannot regulate the open market issue during a planning instrument, an urban planning instrument. Yeah, that's the next reason why. Therefore, we were thinking about how to define it. We had this concept of energy zoning, where we call it, to define a little bit what it is and what it is not. And then we had this energy zoning plans where we designate areas where it is not possible to get a gas supply in the case of new buildings. And that was our first step because we still missed a federal law. And Vienna is also a province, and the province has an own building code and special planning act. This is a very special situation in Austria. I know that's not common in other countries in Europe. I know Belgium and a little bit of Germany has a similar structure of the provinces and the legal power of it, but nevertheless, it's very special. But it was a very good exercise how to do it, and we see we made a notification by the European Union, by the European Commission of each plan, and we did it by district. And the experience was nice that nevertheless nobody was complaining about it, and we get this approval and this notification of it. And it was a very good for us to get experience. But nevertheless, it was not sufficient because we want to transform the building stock if you talk about energy transition. Therefore, we have to go new ways. And the first step for us was the development of the Vienna Heating Plan. First of all, we have this starting point, the Viennese climate guide again, and the concept phase out of gas. And through this concept, we decide that we need an implementation program because it's not sufficient to have just a concept and you have almost no idea how to implement it. And that the reason was why we start with a phase out program in 3 years ago. I will talk a little bit more about later. And one very important instrument for us was the Vienna Heating Plan to get an idea what we are doing with the building stock. First of all, we have the heat density. Heat density is the most important aspect if you need a heating network or not. This was just the first step. For us, as alternative, we looked at shallow geothermal energy. So we looked where in the city is it possible to get a borehole heat exchanger within, where we can drill up to 100 or 200 meters and make this to use it via heat pumps for heating and cooling of the buildings. And the advantage of the systems is that you can make heating and cooling once in one system. But it was just a potential analysis, and I will not go too in detail. Maybe if someone is interested, you can read it later. I will jump over this. Yeah, and then we looked where it's the renewable energy potential sufficient and where not, building block by building block. And as you can see here in the figure, the green areas is where I have more or less sufficient renewable energy potential. We looked now also in detail about the groundwater potential and also the issue about the noise issue about the air heat pumps and where it's possible and where not. Um, and then we make an overlay of both. And then we try to figure out in which area we really need a heating network, a district heating network, and in which area we need individual solution or smaller collective, local heating collective. Yeah, and finally, this was the result of the Vienna Heating Plan, where we decide in which area district heating should come and in which area not. A little bit more in detail. So first of all, we defined area we want to densify district heating because district heating is already available there, especially buildings which are along the district heating pipe. Yeah, we have this situation in Vienna that a lot of buildings which are along the district heating pipe are not connected. Yeah. And therefore, that's not a sufficient situation, and intensification of it is it's a first step. But secondly, we need the extension of it, especially in the high dense built areas where you have no other possibilities of it. And very important was for us to figure out which area could be covered by district heating. This is this district heating future zone, we call it. And we figure out 4 pilot areas where the expanding is already done by the energy provider of the city and give a free offer to everyone to connect to it. But our first experience of that was not so nice because we have no legal binding regulation in Austria that the owners of the building has to change the energy system, has to get out of fossil energy. So there's no legal binding obligation on that. And even there is a very high funding or subsidies, almost nobody cares about it. So we recognize that the connection rate in the first streets where the district heating was new built was not so high. For instance, after 2 years in this area, Gumpendorfer Straße, there was a district pipe for more than 50 buildings, and just 17 buildings are want to connect to district heating. That's less, it's around a quarter, and yeah, that's not very sufficient for us, the situation on it. Finally, we have other areas, for instance, the local collective heating areas, where we said we need new heating networks because the centralized district heating capacity in terms of renewable energy is limited. And therefore, we need a lot of new with different sources, using waste heat, using also shallow geothermal energy, using groundwater and so on. And we recognize that we are still need maybe approximately 1,000 of such small heating networks additional to the central district heating network. This will be also a huge challenge. And I talk also with other cities about this issue, and yeah, they have the same because in most of the city, the centralized district heating is limited in the capacities. Yeah. And finally, in all other areas, we say, okay, make your individual solutions will be the best. But nevertheless, we have to think also about the cooling issue. Becomes more and more, the cooling demand is rising, and we want to promote solutions which could be both cooling and heating as well. Yeah. Finally, we have also the 100 project phase out of gas to show what is possible also for old buildings. For instance, we have you can see here a lot of different types of buildings and ages of buildings and uses of buildings where we find renewable or decarbonized solutions. But finally, also such an old building, Gründerzeithaus, is possible. This was refurbished with a floor heating system using a borehole heat exchanger and one borehole or two borehole heat exchanger were drilled in the public space under the sidewalk. And yeah, they are full 100% renewed. Yeah, and you see it's possible to do this also in the old building stock, but nevertheless it's quite not so cheap. And if you have no subsidies on it, nobody will do it. And it will be not the normal one. It's some special project, but it shows what is possible. Finally, that's my the last point on it. We have this phase out program because spatial energy planning for the whole energy transition, and if you talk about also electricity and mobility, it will be not sufficient. Therefore, we have this phase out program, and we started 3 years ago, and we had different kind of, we call it streams. So it's a kind of working group working in different depth on it and different stages on it. And then we have this overall coordination and we have regular meetings all together to make the update of each stream, who is working what. And I was leading the spatial energy planning stream of the city. Our department has also the 100 projects. And we were well connected to the legal issues team, to the funding team, to the pilot areas team, and so on. So that's very important that you have this a kind of implementation coordination structure in your municipality. Otherwise, it will not work and implementation will not happen. And we are now in the phase 2 of the program. 3 years ago, we were thinking that in this year we can start with the large scale rollout of our developed solution. But then some things happened on the federal level, and we get the fundings were cutted. We have this budget restriction, and finally, a very important national law, is not coming. Which was very important for us. Therefore, we are now reshaping. That's very new and brand new, more or less. That's my last slide. We try to bring these streams together to cluster. We call it thematic cluster. We have now 3 thematic cluster: planning, building, and activation. Building means that the building of the city, owned by the city or by the housing associations, to come forward to be a front runner on it. And secondly, the whole activation issue for owner, for stakeholder, for the citizens, and as well. But then finally, we have the planning cluster. And we have next week, we have the kickoff for this new program. I will lead the planning cluster for the city together with the net provider. And as you can see, I try to make some words on it, what we are doing. So we try to connect all these planning issues together in this new cluster. So the heating and cooling issue, the electricity adaptation of the grid, the energy storage issue for all of them, the new gas decommission plans, what we can do accordingly to the new gas gas market directive, Finally, all this issue about local collective heating networks and integration of renewables. And finally, the whole infrastructure coordination. So if there is a new heating network or the extension of the district heating network, that it goes in line with other measures of mobility, measures of greening the areas, all these adaptation issues and so on. Try to get a holistic planning on it with all important stakeholders which are working in this field. And finally, we have the framework. That's our some supporting working groups like on economy, labor market, about the financing issue, about the legal issue, and finally about subsidies as well. So yeah, as you can see, that's very holistic. But if you talk about energy transition in a municipality or in a city, yeah, it's the way how to do it. And yeah, finally, I hope we get a new and interesting program on it. I hope that was interesting for you. And now I'm waiting for your questions.
Yes, thanks a lot, Herbert. Do you have any questions in the chat? Or?
No, I have a question.
Yes.
I don't know if you can hear me.
Can you hear Herbert?
Yes, I can hear you.
If I understood it correctly, you use lots of fossil fuel gas in Vienna, right?
Yes, so the main fossil source is gas. How that's the situation in many European cities. I think in Sweden it's a little bit different. It is, but yeah, in the case of Vienna, also in German cities, Dutch cities, French cities, and so on, the most used source as fossil source is in the most of the cases gas, fossil gas.
Yes. Question is, as you already have the infrastructure in your city, have you considered to use biogas? You know, in Sweden we are quite good in producing biogas, so you can produce biogas from the waste from the citizens in the city and promote the transition to the more climate friendly solution without changing any doing any big changes in the system. You have still the infrastructure in place, but you change from fossil gas to the more bio-friendly solution.
Yeah. About this issue, how you can use green gas or hydrogen for the infrastructure. I can say if it comes to the heating or the hot water preparation in the buildings or all these low temperature issues and also the energy need you have, so the biogas or the hydrogen will be not sufficient available on it. That's the first step. And the second one is that most of the systems are not ready for that. Finally, you cannot use it and you will never have this amount of it. The hydrogen or the biogas we will need for the co-generation, the district heating production, for the peak loads. Also for the peak loads, which you need for the balance in the electricity system as well, and for process heat in special cases for some industries where they have almost no alternative, where they really need gas, and that's not a lot, but they have a very high amount of it, and they will need the biogas, and we will not have this amount of biogas and hydrogen. That's sometimes it's pushed forward from the gas lobby. It's really a lobbyist issue. If you talk with everyone who is an expert on this field, you will give you the same answer. And we have already this political decision that green gas, it's not an issue of room heating and hot water preparation. We need it for much more important fields, and therefore this infrastructure we have within the buildings is not sufficient for that.
Great. Thank you.
So it's used, but in different areas.
We also have a question in the chat. So how did you dig your geothermal heat?
There are two different types. If we talk about deep geothermal energy, which is used for decarbonization of the central district heating, that's more than 3,000 meters, 3,500 meters are the first one, which we have already the first power plant, deep geothermal power plant for the district heating. So 3,500 meters around that. If you talk about shallow geothermal energy, where you use the soil as a storage for heat pumps, then the average is 120 meters. But it's not the active energy because in the case of Vienna, so the active hot water is very deep on the side, so just the soil as a storage with 120 meters. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Herbert.